where the madness on the court takes over. And there's no one better than PJ Glasser and Ben Stevens to guide you through bracket season. This is Game Day Garage, the Quad.
Hello and welcome into Game Day Garage, the Quad, March Madness Friday edition. I'm Ian Sachs here with you, coming live from my hotel room in Rapid City, South Dakota. No place else I'd rather be than watching March Madness, both the men's and women's tournaments going on today. The best day in the calendar year, bar none. 32 NCAA tournament games, 16 on the men's side, 16 on the women's side. We'll get you caught up on all the action that's going on. We've got 2 games on both the men's and the women's tournaments going on right now. A couple will start during this stream. Also have a couple guests lined up to join us later on today, but it's March. This is what we've been waiting for all year long. The first weekend of the NCAA tournament is here, and it certainly has not disappointed so far. We'll recap Thursday's action because we're still very early on in Friday, so not many results to talk about so far from today, but 16 full games on the men's side yesterday to get things started. Couple of upsets, couple of thrillers, and everything that you hope for in a day full of March Madness games. Then we'll also talk about what's going on in the men's game so far, in the women's games so far, maybe preview a little bit of what's to come. Talk about how our brackets are doing. My men's one, not too bad. 12 of 16 on yesterday's games. I don't think I lost anyone that I had advancing to next weekend. So in pretty good shape after day one. But let's dive into what's going on right now. Duke leading Charleston big. This is in the women's heading into the fourth quarter, 66-41, the score there in the 3:14. Then over in Fort Worth, Texas, TCU with a 53-27 lead over UC San Diego. Another 3:14 game right there. Interesting that the women's tournament starts with a pair of 3:14 games, and both 3 seeds, I think, are very much potential Final Four contenders. When you think about what Duke has and the way that they've been playing recently, 17 straight wins heading into the big dance. And this is a team that's playing its best basketball in the second half of the season, back end of January, all of February, all of March, and into March Madness now. Carol Lawson's team led by Toby Fournier, incredible stuff so far this season, and they're going to be an insanely tough out for anyone here in this tournament. Moving over to TCU, they have Olivia Miles, who I think is my favorite player to watch in men's or women's college basketball. Just so much fun. Already 10 assists or multiple games with double-digit assists for her. First player in NCAA tournament history to have double-digit assist games for 2 different schools. Had it a couple times at Notre Dame and now with TCU here in their first-round game. And the Horned Frogs are a scary, dangerous team. Now, I did not pick them to go to the Final Four, but I thought about it. I seriously thought about it. I have them going to the Elite Eight. Talk about my bracket in just a little bit, but getting caught up on the men's games so far. The best game of the first round matchup-wise, the one when the whole bracket came out on Sunday evening, the number one game that I had circled that I was looking forward to, Santa Clara and Kentucky. That's leading things off today on the men's side. They're right about halftime there. Been a very close first half. And then the second men's game to get things started, the 5-12, Texas Tech and Akron. This Akron team is dangerous. This Texas Tech team was a sleeper Final Four team that I had until they lost JT Toppin late in the season, going down with that season-ending injury. So no Toppin. And I was torn on who to pick in this game. I was very torn on who to go with. I ultimately went with Akron, one of the best teams out of the MAC, the two-bid Mid-American Conference between the Zips and Miami of Ohio. Akron losing just one game in the conference out, came way back in the beginning of January to Miami by just 3 points. And now they're in the big dance. They won the conference tournament championship. Now they get a banged up Texas Tech team that I thought was a sleeper Final Four potential in this team. Right around mid-February is when I always start to think of, okay, who are some teams that, depending on how the bracket shapes out, but that I could see myself picking to go to the Final Four. Texas Tech was one of those teams. Texas Tech, right along with Michigan. Those were kind of the two that I really had my eye on. Michigan, I've had my eye on all year long, and that's reflective in the bracket that I filled out. Texas Tech was another team. I said they're not going to be, a 1 or 2 seed. They'll probably be in that 3, 4, 5 range. Let's see what they do the final couple of weeks of the season. Next game, or maybe 2 games later, was when Toppin went down. And I thought, wow, that's a seriously tough blow to a team that was in the Elite Eight last year. They had the national champions, Florida Gators, on the ropes in the Elite Eight. They were nearly in the Final Four last year, and then they come back this year with an incredible resume up to that point. Fizzled a little bit down the stretch without Toppin, but still a dangerous team in March Madness. So we'll see how this game shakes out. Texas Tech just going up by 9 late in the first half, 6:40 to go. It's 29-20. Red Raiders with the lead in this early game here, the first game in that portion of the bracket. And so we'll keep our eye locked in on that. Duke pulling away 66-43. And then TCU with a 27-point lead on the women's side, keeping things locked in there. Now, I was on the selection show special the other night for the men. Didn't get a chance to talk about my bracket and my picks. Let's do that now in the early going here. We're still very early on in the tournament. I have Michigan on the men's side winning it all over Houston. I've got the Cougars going back to the national championship game, but once again losing in heartbreaking fashion. Michigan has been the team that I have had my eye on all year long. What they did in the non-conference this season, reminiscent of what UConn did in both of their national championship runs just 2 and 3 years ago. And it just brought me back to what Dan Hurley and the Huskies did. And I said, okay, this Michigan team is legit. Let's watch them. And then they go on and win the Big Ten regular season championship, come up short in the tournament, but still just the way that they have played all year long. Yaxel Lendenberg, one of the best players in the country, should be a first-team All-American in my eyes. The transfer in for them has been sensational this season. Now, they are a little bit banged up. That does give me a little bit of pause, but so are a lot of the other top teams. Duke entering this tournament banged up. Who knows what the Blue Devils can be? We'll talk about their first-round game in just a little bit because that was one of the best games of the first day of the men's tournament in earnest, the Thursday slate. But the rest of the Final Four, I do have Duke. That region was so tough for me to try to figure out just who was going to come out of it. You have Duke, the number 1 seed, UConn, the number 2 seed, Michigan State, the 3 seed, Kansas, the 4 seed, St. John's, the 5 seed. Honestly, you could make a case for any one of those 5 teams to go to the Final Four, and you're not crazy. Not at all. Now, I did pick I went pretty chalky there in that region. I have the 1, 2, 3, and 5 seeds as my Sweet 16. I have St. John's losing to Duke in the Sweet 16 and UConn beating Michigan State to get to that Elite Eight showdown between Duke and UConn. And then I ultimately have Duke leading to the national semifinals and the Final Four. And then the other region, I have Arkansas. The Razorbacks have been playing so white hot recently, winning the SEC tournament championship. John Calipari's team figuring it out in the last couple of weeks of the season. They get a 4 seed, and I have them knocking off Arizona in the Sweet 16 and then moving on to the national semifinals, beating Purdue in the Elite Eight. As mentioned, Michigan winning that lower right region, and Houston beating Florida in the Elite Eight in that final region. The one final Elite Eight team that I didn't mention, I have Iowa State as the 2 seed, losing to Michigan in that lower right-hand portion of the bracket. So went pretty chalky, but I feel like that's based on what happened last year. You had all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. The lowest seed that you had in the Elite Eight last year for the men was a 3 seed. So we saw this pattern last year, and I think, unfortunately, with the way the transfer portal is set up, the way that NIL is set up, we're going to be seeing a lot more chalky NCAA tournaments on the men's side than we're accustomed to. But there are some potential Cinderellas that could maybe break through to the Sweet 16. I'll go over a few of those in just a little bit. We jump over to the women's side, just looking at resetting everything. Duke up 75-51 on Charleston. 7 minutes to go in that game. 58-30 TCU leading with about 4.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. As mentioned, that Santa Clara, Kentucky game at halftime, 31-29, the lead for the Broncos at the half. And then it's 29-23, Texas Tech up on Akron, just under 6 minutes to go in the first half. So keeping an eye on all of these games. Talking women's NCAA tournament now, looking at my bracket, I have all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. We had that last year. We've had that a couple of times in the women's bracket. And this year feels like there is a clear-cut top handful of teams, and it's really hard to bet against any of the 1 seeds. You have UConn, undefeated, reigning national champion. The dynamic duo of AZ Fudd and Sarah Strong have been sensational for the Huskies this year, blowing teams out, winning by 30-something points every single game. It's impressive what Gino and the Huskies have done. The team on the other side, the number 2 1 seed, UCLA, just 1 loss this season. Corey Close's team has been super impressive. Lauren Betts, a matchup nightmare inside. And they were the number 1 seed last year, went to the Final Four, ultimately lost to UConn in the national semifinals. And this is a team and a program that has been super impressive this year, last year, and what they're building there in Westwood and have built is so impressive. I've got them getting back to the Final Four, got them in the national championship game as well. No spoilers just yet. Then talking about the other 1 seeds, Texas is the number 3 1 seed, winning the SEC championship, knocking off South Carolina in the title game. Super impressive what Vic Schaefer and the Longhorns, led by Madison Booker, have done it this season. I got to see them in person back in December in the non-conference. They played at South Dakota State. And even though the Longhorns said that was their worst game of the season up to that point, they still won handily over an NCAA tournament team in the Jackrabbits. They're an 11 seed, play in just a little while. They play right after this TCU game finishes up. We'll talk about them in just a little bit. But for Texas, they have put together an impressive run. The return of the Longhorns to a very high standard. This is one of the most historic programs in NCAA women's basketball. They've cut down the nets, and what Jody Conrad did way back in the day, now Vic Schaefer getting that program right back to that point as well. I see them going back to the Final Four. And then how can you bet against the South Carolina women? They have been so impressive under Dawn Staley, just the consummate, consistent winners that the Gamecocks are as they're in the Final Four every single year, competing for national championships every single year. So I went with them to go back to the Final Four. Then in that all 4 1 seeds, I went chalk once again. I have UConn and UCLA in the national championship. They have a combined 1 loss this season. UConn's undefeated. The Bruins have that 1 loss. And I have UConn edging UCLA once again. They beat them in the Final Four last year in the semifinals. I have them winning the national championship. Huskies go back-to-back is the way that I have my women's bracket shaking out. I do have a couple of 3 seeds, though, in the Elite Eight. I have this TCU team. I have this Duke team. Ironically, the 2 teams that start things off here in the round of 64, 2 teams that I have in the Elite Eight. And based on their performances today, super, super impressive so far. Duke with a 22-point lead, 5 minutes to go in this one. TCU up 30 late in the third quarter. Moving over to the men's side, though, back to that game. Texas Tech just opened up a 10-point lead on Akron. This Red Raider team tested in the Big 12. The Big 12 this year was one of the best and strongest conferences. I think it's a conference that has multiple teams that can win a national championship. You have Houston. You have Iowa State. Texas Tech, I said, if they were healthy with JT Toppin, I would look at them as being a Final Four contender. No doubt about it. What Grant McCaslin and these Red Raiders have done have been super impressive. Injury bug just hitting them at the absolute wrong time there. But impressive what they've now 12-point lead for Texas Tech. So really awesome what they have done to start this NCAA tournament as we're getting some live reactions here, some games. I'm interested to see when this Santa Clara Kentucky game picks back up to start the second half. That's the game that I'm really going to have my eye on once the action picks up. But let's look back at some of Thursday's action, because Thursday was an insane day for March Madness. You always want to see and talk about those upsets that you have from the first couple of rounds. And I love you have VCU, who staged one of the biggest comebacks in NCAA tournament history. They were down 19 to North Carolina. 19. And the Rams storm all the way back, pick up the win in overtime to advance over the Tar Heels. And so the 11 seed moving on there. High Point and Wisconsin, a 5-12 on the other side. High Point, super, super competitive in the NCAA tournament. Once again, back-to-back seasons that the Panthers are dancing. They lost in the first round last year. This year, they're moving on to the round of 32. A 1-point win over Wisconsin, and it was a back-and-forth game. Back and forth in the final seconds as well. And then the Panthers get a couple of defensive stops on the other side, and they advance to the round of 32. Wisconsin now as a 5 seed. I believe I saw the stat. I think they're 1-6, 1-7, something like that as a number 5 seed. Just one of those quirky March Madness stats that, wow, okay, they've been a 5 seed that many times and have suffered that many losses. That's just one of those insane stats that you hear. Then from the other mid-majors, one more win for the mid-majors, and that was St. Louis rolling past Georgia in an 8-9 game. They now get to play Michigan. That's the Billikens' reward for that. But one of the best games of the day, probably when the bracket came out, you wouldn't have thought so. A 116, number 1 overall seed Duke against Siena. The Saints dancing for the first time in 16 years under Gary McNamara now as their head coach. And they played 5 players the entire game. Battled injury bugs all year long. So a short rotation, and yet they were up double digits on Duke at halftime. First time that a 1 seed has ever trailed the 16 seed by double figures at the half. And then they were leading much of the second half. Duke ultimately ekes out a narrow win over the Saints to advance to the round of 32. But props to what the Saints did. props to what Siena has done all season long in the MAC tournament to advance to the NCAA tournament and then putting together one of the all-time great performances by a 16 seed. In the NCAA tournament, you have 216 wins. Those two are 1 and 2 in terms of 16 performances in the NCAA tournament with UMBC and Fairleigh Dickinson pulling off those two upsets, UMBC over Virginia, FDU over Purdue. But for the Saints, I would argue the third best 16 performance ever in the NCAA tournament to take Duke with the BUZZER twins, a program that was in the Final Four last year. It's Duke, one of the bluest of blue bloods. You can argue maybe even the bluest of blue bloods, to take them down to the wire in that game with 5 players. Insane what this Saints team has done and did yesterday. Hats off to what Gary McNamara's crew did, and it'll be interesting to see just where they go from that, how they springboard that into next season. McNamara's name floated around for a couple of coaching openings. We'll see if he sticks around in Loudonville. It's also coaching carousel season. Just so much going on in terms of men's and women's college basketball, because you have the tournaments, you have the secondary tournaments as well going on. You have the transfer portal with players whose seasons are over announcing that they're entering the portal and looking at other opportunities. And then you have the coaching carousel as well. So just an insane time, but it's the best time of the year. College basketball, the best season, the best sport out there, bar none. You will not be able to twist my arm and tell me any differently. Looking at some of the other results from Thursday on the men's side, let's look down the listing here. Michigan rolling to a win over Howard. Houston rolling to a win over Idaho. Michigan State with a big win over North Dakota State. Illinois dominating Penn as well. That's cool to see Fran McCaffrey back in the NCAA tournament. 5th program that he's taken to the big dance, year 1 for him with the Quakers. That was an insane game for them to win Ivy Madness over the number 1 seed and preseason favorite Yale Bulldogs. Gonzaga, of course, winning in the round of 64. They knocked off Kennesaw State. That one was pretty tight. Zags coming away with a 9-point win. That was the last game of the night, finished up very late. But I always love those late games. As mentioned, Arkansas rolling to a big win over Hawaii. Hawaii hung tough with them, but they just ran into the buzzsaw that is the Hogs right now. 54 points in the first half for Darius Acuff Jr. and the rest of John Calipari's Razorbacks. Vanderbilt beating McNeese. That was one upset that I had that I didn't get right. I had the Cowboys winning an NCAA tournament game for a second year in a row. Louisville edging South Florida. That was another upset that I had that didn't happen. I really liked this Bulls team and thought that they could have advanced. Texas, one of the teams from the first 4, they're on to the round of 32. I believe it's only been once or twice that we have not had a first 4 team make it to at least the round of 32. This year, it's at least Texas. We'll see if maybe Miami of Ohio can join them later. I have that in my bracket. Texas knocking off BYU. Knocking out A.J. Debonsa, 35 points, 10 rebounds for the potential number 1 pick in this summer's NBA draft. Then Texas A&M with a 63-50 win over St. Mary's. First game of the day was TCU just beating Ohio State. Difference of 2 halves there. TCU led by 15 at the break, and then Ohio State plus 13 in the second half. One game that I did not mention from Thursday, though, Nebraska. The Cornhuskers rolling to a win over Troy, 76-47. The big storyline there, Nebraska, the last power conference team to win an NCAA tournament game, and they've done it. They finally did it. Fran Hoiberg's squad into the round of 32. Insane. Just so happy for them. That's a team that finished second in the Big Ten this season. Second place in the Big Ten, a conference that was loaded. You have Michigan, you have Michigan State, you have Purdue, so many other teams. I know I'm missing several others that I'm not mentioning right now off the top of my head, but what Nebraska has done this season, you have Iowa, always a tough out. Ben McCollum, such a good coach there with the Hawkeyes. And yet the Cornhuskers, the ones to finally get the job done, just so great for them to be onto the round of 32, pick up that elusive first NCAA tournament win. So exciting in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now John Rothstein heading there, and we'll have a happy hour on his tab because the Cornhuskers picked up that win. Okay, we're back in action in St. Louis. Santa Clara and Kentucky underway. 90 seconds into the second half, Santa Clara up 4. Largest lead of the day so far for the Broncos, 35-31. They're on top. Texas Tech with a 4-point lead. Just switched to a 4-point lead over Texas Tech. I can't do math. It's early. I'm sleep deprived, but we sleep in May. 40-34 is the lead right there for the Red Raiders over the Akron Zips. Over on the women's side, Duke up 19, 79-60, 2:20 to go. And TCU with 8.5 minutes to go up 64-35 over UC San Diego. Those two women's games, 3:14 matchups. This Kentucky-Santa Clara game, so interesting. Herb Sendek back in the NCAA tournament. He's taken a couple of programs there. First time doing it with Santa Clara. First time for the Broncos in the Big Dance since Steve Nash was suiting up for them. One of my favorite players of all time, led them to the NCAA tournament way back in the 90s. It's been 30 years since Santa Clara has participated in the NCAA tournament. And now they get a Kentucky program that, well, there's a lot there with the Wildcats. Always considered one of the best programs in the country. And they have a $22 million roster. That's been said so many times, and yet that only gets them a 7 seed. An up and down season for Mark Pope and the Wildcats, and yet here they are in a dogfight in the NCAA tournament. Back and forth they go. Kentucky now up 138-37. But this was the game, as I keep saying, that I had my eye on. This first round game that I really wanted to see just how this would come out. One of the last first round games when I was filling out my bracket that I picked because I just didn't know where I wanted to go and who I was going to pick. Ultimately sided with the Broncos. Love Herb Sendek. Love this Bronco team. They've led players to the NBA, now finally back in the Big Dance. So we'll see if they can get the win. 38-37, 17-11 to go in the game so far. Kentucky, 9 turnovers. Their season average, 10.5. So above that with more than 17 minutes to go in the game. Akron and Texas Tech, 1.8 there left in half number 1. 5-point lead for the Red Raiders. Looks like we'll get one final Akron possession. They'll have to go the length of the court with 1.8 to go. Let's watch this play, see how it transpires. The long baseball pass intercepted right at the 3-point line, and that'll do it. So Texas Tech, the 40-35 lead heading into the locker room. Just one men's game now going on, and that is this Kentucky-Santa Clara game. The Broncos up 40-38 with just under 17 minutes to go. Man, Kentucky hit another 3. That's back-to-back threes for the Wildcats. They go back up by 1. This one's going to come down to the wire. I can just feel it, and we're better for it because this game, so great. So good. Duke closing in on the win on the women's side. They're up now 19 with 50 seconds to go. Still a 30-point lead for TCU with 6.5 minutes to play in that one in Fort Worth. Kentucky hit another three. The Wildcats on the men's side up by 2 over Santa Clara with 16 to play, 44-42. But, man, it is March. It is March Madness. This is, in my mind, the best day of the calendar year because you have first-round games for both the men and the women. The women tournament is one day behind the men's in terms of the first 2 weekends. They'll play, the men go Thursday, Sunday, the women go Friday through Monday. And then finally, when we get to Final Four weekend, it flips. The women go one day before the men. So the women go Friday, Sunday. The men obviously go Saturday and Monday. But yesterday, we had those 16 men's first round games and 2 playing games on the women's side. 2 first 4 games and the 10 seed playing game. Virginia knocking off Arizona State in a super tight one. The Sun Devils started this season, rolled through non-conference, hit a little bit of a lull once they got into Big 12 play. But what Molly Miller has done with that Sun Devil program in year one after taking TCU to the Big Dance with a 30-win season with the Lopes last year, what she's building with the Sun Devils, super, super impressive. And this is only the beginning. Only the beginning leading them to the NCAA tournament. So we just went final in Durham. The Duke women advancing to the second round with a dominant win over Charleston. The Cougars making their first NCAA tournament appearance ends in a first-round loss to the Duke Blue Devils. So they're on to the second round. Game that just started on ESPN2 right after that one, an 8-9, Virginia Tech and Oregon in Austin, Texas. The winner will get the winner of Texas and their first-round game from the 116. So keep an eye on this one. We'll be watching this game as it progresses and transpires. Back on the men's side in St. Louis, Kentucky up 46-44. And wow, they just missed a 3. The Wildcats, they've been pretty hot from deep so far today. 13:40 to go in this game. The winner will advance to the second round, play the winner of the 215 in that lower right-hand portion of your bracket. So we'll see just how it keeps going. But a 2-point game now. Santa Clara hit a bucket to pull back within 2, cut the deficit in half. Over on the women's side, TCU still rolling. They're just a couple of minutes away from picking off and pulling out a win over UC San Diego. Gotta love it, though. Just 1 minute to take a step back from the action. As mentioned, I'm in a hotel room right now. The hotel room has 2 TVs. Never seen that before in a hotel room with 2 TVs side by side, just like you would normally see of 2 beds side by side, the 2 TVs. And this is perfect for the first round of the first weekend of March Madness, because March Madness is always a multi-screen experience because there are so many games going on at the same time. So I've got both TVs on to different games, and I have a second computer right here on my right, have 2 games locked in up there. So 4 games going on all at the same time. I'm able to keep an eye on all of them. It just greatness between the men's tournament and the women's tournament. But I do remember back when it was just CBS, say for the men's tournament, when it was just CBS, and they would ping pong back and forth between all of the games, and whatever game that you were watching felt like the biggest deal. It felt like, okay, because this is the game that they're showing, this is what's going on. This is the biggest, most important thing. And now, while it's great that you can watch all the games simultaneously, and I love that, we're better because of it, there was something cool about only having to watch the one game and just being able to have to keep it locked in and say, okay, like I'm watching the scores on the top of the screen, but this is the game that obviously is the most important. Obviously is the best one right now. So there is something that's missing with this of being able to watch all the games, but I'd much rather be able to see all the action and get this kind of quad box going on different devices and everything. It really is the best because you want to be able to watch everything. You want to be able to soak it all in. It is the best 3 weeks of the calendar year. I know for myself, I go through a depression when the tournaments end. When we hear one shining moment, well, I'll always say it's both the best and the worst 3 minutes of the entire calendar year. The best 3 minutes because you're reliving the best sporting event in the country, in the world that has ever existed in March Madness. And when you consume the last 3 weeks and spend so many hours watching and pouring into and thinking about it, going over brackets and all of that, but it also marks the end of it. So it's absolutely a bittersweet moment because while it's so exciting and so much fun to watch, you know that it's the end and then it's over. There are no more games to watch. There's no more brackets to think about. There's no more brackets to fill out. And so it's sad in that moment as well. But back to the action. Let's take a look. Olivia Miles checking out 12 points, 16 rebounds, 14 assists for her. A triple-double in TCU's first round. Let's just advance them in the bracket. They're up 74-40 over UC San Diego with 4:46 to go. So Miles checking out, just an otherworldly performance from her. She had double-digit assists in the first half alone. Super, super impressive for TCU, a team that I have going to the Elite Eight, and it would not surprise me if they go to the Final Four, if they can pull it off and go to the Final Four. I love this TCU team. Olivia Miles, one of the best players in the country, and in my mind, I think my favorite player to watch in men's or women's college basketball. Oregon with an early lead over Virginia Tech, 13-9 in this 8-9 game, about 4:20 to go in the first quarter. As mentioned, that Akron, Texas Tech game on the men's side at halftime, the Red Raiders with a 5-point lead. And then Kentucky and Santa Clara, the first men's game to tip off today. They're currently at a commercial break. I believe the last time I saw the score, it was a 2-point Wildcat lead, somewhere in the mid-40s. We're right about the midway point of the second half in that one. So certainly one that we'll be keeping our eye on and be locked into because, boy, these 7-10 games, these 8-9 games are always such good matchups, always toss-ups when you're looking at the bracket. And this one, I think, is even above the rest, even better than the traditional 7-10 game that you see or an 8-9 game that you see. And it's kind of a shame that one of them is going to have to lose in the first round. We have commercial breaks on all 4 of the games that are going on right now, both on the men's and women's side. So we're just kind of filibustering, waiting for the action to pick back up. 2 women's games, 2 men's games here in this early window. Then it really kicks into high gear. I love how they have kind of that staggered start time for the games. So you're able to lock into one, then maybe catch the beginning of the next one, then turn back to that first game because they're coming up on halftime. Then while they're at the half, you catch back up with that second game that started. And then it's really off and running, and it's going to be great when we have 3 or 4 games going on in either tournament as we take a look at some of the games that are coming up next. On the women's side, the next one to tip off will be Baylor and Nebraska, a 6-11 matchup there. Nebraska winning in the first 4, knocking off a Richmond team that was an at-large team out of the Atlantic 10 for a second straight season. But Nebraska picked up that win. The Cornhuskers were ranked earlier this season, ultimately fall to an 11 seed. The winner of that game will play Duke on Sunday. Then the next game to tip off after that will be another 6-11, Washington and South Dakota State. That's one that I have my eye on, particularly the Jackrabbits trying to advance in the NCAA tournament for the third time in the last 4 seasons, 4 straight trips to the big dance for Aaron Johnston and the Jacks. Looking at the rest of the men's games coming up, Arizona and LIU just tipped off a couple of minutes ago. Arizona up 12-2 on the Sharks. Remember when LIU used to be the Blackbirds, Blackhawks? Now they're the Sharks, rebranded. They're light blue and yellow, very similar color scheme to the Los Angeles Chargers. And Arizona, the number 2 overall seed in the tournament, they're rolling early, up by 8 in that one. Just a couple of minutes in. Then Virginia will tip off against Wright State. Ryan Odom leading the Cavaliers into the NCAA tournament in his first season. And love that storyline there, because if you remember back in 2018, Odom was the coach of UMBC, the team that beat Virginia, the 16-1, the first ever 16-1 on the men's side. It was Ryan Odom who did it. A great feature on midmajormadness.com that posted yesterday about Odom now as the head man for the Cavaliers and just kind of what that dynamic is like. And the article goes into about how UMBC is not a name that can be said around the Virginia campus, specifically around that men's basketball program. And yet Odom still kind of cheers, obviously, for his retriever program. But let's talk a little bit about Ryan Odom and his coaching career and the programs that he has led and left and where they are. His former programs, dancing. You have UMBC in the big dance this year. You have Utah State and you have VCU, all in March Madness. He said in the article, I'm cheering for all of them. I'm still, scoreboard watching from a distance, rooting for each of them to continue to have success, even after leaving them and getting a power conference gig in Virginia in the ACC. So really exciting there to see what he has done so far in his first season with the Virginia Cavaliers, and they'll tip it off in just a little bit. Well, I mentioned off the top that we would be bringing on a couple of guests here. And the first guest has finally entered the chat. Let's see if I can get a little drum roll or something like that before we welcome him in. Trying to play around here, and let's see if I can. But no, it is... Let's see. I have music. Okay. Let's go. A little intro. And with that, we welcome Mike Phillips to the stream. Mike, thank you so much for hopping on with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Mike, it is March Madness. It is the absolute best time of the year. And what are your initial impressions? We're early on in the Friday slate. I think the best game of the first round going on right now. We were talking about it off air a little bit. That Santa Clara, Kentucky game going on. It's been back and forth the whole time, and we're still locked in on that one.
Oh, this game's been so much fun. I mean, I said when I was breaking the brackets down, it's like CBS made a great call putting this the first game on Friday. We're talking right now. Kentucky's up 12 minutes to go. Have a fun finish.
Yeah, it certainly will be and should be. But take us through your bracket. Mike hosts the Just End the Suffering podcast. Just great. Okay, Mike, before we get into March Madness, how did you come up with that name? Because I love that name for your podcast.
Yeah, well, the long story is like every team I root for basically never wins. So between the Mets, the Jets, the Knicks, and the New York Rangers, like I've seen in my lifetime, I think one Stanley Cup final.
Yep.
I was around for the 99 NBA finals. I saw that.
Yep.
And I saw 2 World Series the Mets lost, and the Jets don't do anything. So that sums it up pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's been a rough time to be a New York sports fan, especially for those teams that you picked. But of course, luck of the draw would have it that those would be the ones that you gravitate towards. But okay, Mike, take me through your initial impressions of the first 16 games, Thursday's action. We had a lot of drama. We had that VCU comeback. We had High Point knocking off Wisconsin, and maybe one of the wildest games that we've seen in recent memory. Siena nearly knocking off Duke would have busted a bunch of brackets had the Saints held on for that one. What are your big takeaways from Thursday?
Well, this is really, revenge of the mid-majors, the way I'm calling this, what we've had so far here, because obviously Miami, Ohio, we see in the first 4. And by the way, can we talk about how fun that environment was in Dayton with the first 4?
Insane.
Like that was probably, I think, between that and Nebraska's fans invading Oklahoma City. Yes, those were the 2 best environments in the first round so far.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Happy that Miami of Ohio got that win. Absolutely deserving to be in the field. And you can make an argument that, okay, maybe they should have just been right into the round of 64, not have to go to Dayton. But that's going to be a memory that the players, the fans, the whole Miami of Ohio community is going to remember for a long time, because they're not going to have that environment here today when they play later on in the round of 64. They're not playing just an hour down the road, but that was so much fun to see what they can do. And I'll be honest with you, I have them advancing today. I have them getting to the round of 32.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, because SMU, we could talk about, the whole BJ Edwards situation about they kind of lied to the committee a little bit, and maybe they were not completely honest about when he was going to play and say, okay, he's going to play in the tournament. They probably were saying, oh, he'll be ready for the first round. Maybe not thinking they were going to be in the play-in spots. But I do think Tennessee is a much better defensive team than SMU is. And I do think that Tennessee has a big-time freshman, Nate Ammons. I know he's been hobbled lately. Miami, Ohio, I love how they play offensively. Defensively, not so great. And I think that might get exposed today.
That's a great point, and especially with how hot they shot, especially in that second half in the win over SMU. The big question is, can you sustain that? Can you do that multiple games? I feel like so many times we see teams in a tournament setup where one game they cannot miss, and you think, wow, okay, they're never going to miss again. And then the next game, the law of averages catch up to them, and they can't hit anything. And so it's all about trying to see if they can sustain that. Santa Clara and Kentucky right now, 1-point game, Wildcats leading, 9:40 to go. Mike, who did you pick in this game?
I had Santa Clara.
Same here.
Yes.
Same here. What went into that pick?
I think that Santa Clara team is very underrated. This is not a vintage Kentucky group. Whereas, you think Kentucky, you think, they have all these 5 stars. They have all these athletes. This is not a very athletic Kentucky bunch. And, the thing with Santa Clara, they have a lot of length and they have a lot of ability to make plays. And, they've looked very good in their tournament, whereas they've had, the opportunity to play a bunch of, games. They beat St. Mary's twice. They played Gonzaga down to the wire a couple of times. They're not your mid-major. They earned a 10 seed.
Yes, 100% about it. I love that we get a 3-bid WCC conference. The last year that Gonzaga is in the WCC, and what a way to send them out. St. Mary's losing yesterday to Texas A&M in a 7-10. We'll see if Santa Clara can join Gonzaga in the second round with a win here. Still down 1 with 9 minutes to go. Allen Graves at the line for 2 for the Broncos. But Mike, how's your bracket doing? How did it survive day 1?
Well, I just checked because I wasn't sure. I didn't have to a hot start. I had a much better night session. I'm 11 of 16 correct yesterday.
Nice. I'm just 1 ahead of you. I got 12 out of 16. Still everyone in the later rounds intact for you?
Yes, I still have the entire Elite 8 and Final 4, so I'm in good shape there.
Great. That's always good. I believe I could be wrong, but I think I still have all my Sweet 16 also. I think the only 4 teams that I lost, I only had winning that one game. So I think I'm in really, knock on wood, really good shape.
Yeah, I lost 2 Sweet 16 teams because Wisconsin, Wisconsin's going to Wisconsin in the first round. Back in well enough here. And I had St. Mary's making a deeper run here, but they just couldn't hit shots yesterday, so nothing you can really do about that.
Yeah. That was a really tough one for the Gales to lose that one. Randy Bennett always in the big dance, and love it for them. As for me, I had the High Point upset. I had the VCU upset. I was sweating that VCU one very much so. And talk about that comeback, though. Down 19 against Carolina, and then the last play of regulation, they turn it over. Carolina gets a good look at 3 to maybe win it there. Doesn't go in. And then Carolina, you mentioned not being able to hit shots. They didn't hit a field goal, I think, the whole overtime period. And then VCU pulls off that shocking upset. So I'm all for it. I'm actually really bullish on the Rams this year, and I have them in the Sweet 16. So
I don't have them going that far. I have Illinois in the Final Four, so
fair. Yeah. The thing with Illinois is that if Keaton Wagler can get hot, they can beat anyone in the country. It's such a fun player to watch. I love Keaton Wagler.
They have so many, I love them, and they have so many guys who can shoot. There's something you love here. The odds of them all being called at the same time are slim. Even if Wagler has a bad game, some of the Balkan bunch might pick it up for him. So I think the defense is a little scary, and I don't love the potentially playing Houston on the road, an hour from Houston, playing from Houston's campus. But I think that team is got underseeded a little bit. I think they had an argument for the 2 line.
Yeah. Well, not even an hour from Houston's campus. They're playing Houston in Houston, which is insane that the 2 seed there in that region can basically has 2 home games if they get there in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Just looking around what's going on right now. Santa Clara up 1 on Kentucky as we tick just under 8 minutes. Nope, make it 4. Santa Clara just hitting a 3 from the top of the key. 59-55 in that one. Santa Clara 11 of 18 from the floor in the second half. Texas Tech just pulled away, scored the first 6 points of the second half over Akron. So they're up 46-35 early in the second half. Virginia just tipped off a minute ago against Wright State, and Arizona doubling up LIU 24-12 at the under 12. Media timeout here in the first half. Mike, we know that this Kentucky-Santa Clara game, one of the best games that we have in the whole first round, starting things off today. What are a couple other games that you have your eye on today's slate?
Let me just pull up real quick the exact order of the games because I always forget what goes where in terms of this thing here. Yesterday, I was locked in on obviously the 6-11s. Ohio State 8, TCU 8-9 was a great start to the tournament. I think that's a fantastic one here.
Mm-hmm.
This next window, the 3:15 window here, obviously the Miami Ohio thing is interesting to me. Austria Alabama, I think I'm very high on for upset potential.
Me too. I thought about that one a lot. I ultimately went with Alabama, but I like this Hofstra team a lot. And if they were matching up against maybe one of the other 4 seeds, except maybe Arkansas. I'm really big on Arkansas this year. Outside of that, I would have given a lot more thought. I even gave some thought about having them knock off Alabama. One game that I have my eye on, an 8-9 game, Utah State and Villanova. Villanova didn't impress me too much throughout this season. Utah State, the only Mountain West team to get in, won the regular season and tournament championship. So we'll see if the Aggies can advance for a second straight year in the Big Dance. Northern Iowa, St. John's, that should be a fun one. Sleeper good game that looking at the seeds may not appear that way. UConn Furman tonight. I think that the Paladins can give the Huskies a game. That's one that I'm really interested in because I really do think that Furman can at least keep it close and put a big-time scare in Dan Hurley and the Huskies.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest lines of the day, too. It's 20.5 points for the 215 game, which is a hefty total. So, like, Ian's basically saying he thinks that the Furman will cover that number.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I say it's an 8-point game with just a couple of minutes to go, if not even closer. I do believe that the Paladins will keep close because this is a Furman team that was the preseason favorite in the Southern Conference, didn't play well through a portion of conference play, ended up being, I believe, either the 5 or the 6 seed in the conference tournament, then went on a run and won it. So this team has the potential. Entering the regular season, they were supposed to be the best team in the SoCon, and now they're playing like it. So they're dangerous. I think that they're better than a 15 seed, which is why I think they can give UConn a game there. Santa Clara and Kentucky, 3-point game with 7:47 to go. Kentucky at the line right now. So we'll see how the Wildcats do. But, Mike, you mentioned about how you have Illinois going deep. How's your bracket shaking out? What's your Final Four national champion?
Yeah, I have UConn, Illinois one side.
Okay.
Arizona, Michigan on the other, and Michigan over UConn in the final.
Ooh, okay. Okay, I like that a lot. I think we only agree on one of the Final Four teams there. I also have Michigan. I have Michigan winning the national championship. On the right side with them, I have Arkansas. Big on that Razorback team with John Calipari, Darius Acuff Jr., just so good. And they're playing their best basketball right now. I think they're just starting to peak. And then on the left side, I have Duke knocking off UConn in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four. I am a little nervous about the injuries for the Blue Devils, but I couldn't bet against the Boozer twins. And then in that final region, I have Houston winning in Houston and getting to the Final Four for a second straight year. And I have the Cougars losing in the national championship game for a second straight season. It's going to be heartbreak for Kelvin Sampson, but I just have been on this Michigan team from the non-conference, from what they did, knocking off their other teams as Kentucky's now taken the lead over Santa Clara. And Mike, I mean, this game, when I asked you to come on this stream, you said, yeah, let's do it for the back half of this Kentucky-Santa Clara game because we anticipated that it would be a good one, and it's certainly lived up to it so far.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't know. Like, I think I might be slightly ahead of you, but I have Kentucky up 1 with 6 to go. So I think that's definitely a fun spot here for this game here. And I'll have pressure on Kentucky here because Mark Pope is not very popular down there right now.
No, he certainly is not. Yeah, you are ahead of me. I'm playing it on a side-by-side on my computer, on my Hulu with live TV. So, yeah, I know I am a little bit delayed, so unfortunately there, but still just back and forth. Man, this game's so good. Texas Tech up by about 9 or 10 over Akron. Who did you have in this game? Where did you go, Akron or Tech?
I went Tech. I was like, I felt everybody wants to make this pick because Texas Tech doesn't have JT Toppin, but you look closely at it, Texas Tech can shoot the three very well. Akron does not defend the three very well, which that's a problem. I believe they're like 8 of 14 from three already, Texas Tech.
Yeah, very good points there. I went with Akron because I feel like they have been flying so much under the radar this year with what Miami, Ohio did in the MAC this year that I keep saying that if it wasn't for the Redhawks, this Akron team would be getting so much buzz with what they did, just the one conference loss to the Redhawks way back on January 3rd by 3 points. And they didn't lose a conference game after that, won the tournament championship. And this is, in my mind, a dangerous team. And it's so amazing with Texas Tech, with JT Toppin. I thought of them as a potential Final Four team. If they had Toppin, now they are in Michigan's region, so I wouldn't have had them go to the Final Four. But if they were in any other region and if they had a healthy Toppin, I would have Texas Tech in the Final Four. I'm that high on them. And yet now it was amazing when I was filling out the bracket. It didn't feel right that I'm not picking a team that I thought just a couple weeks ago could go to the Final Four. I'm not even picking them to win one game now, but that's how high I was on this Akron team.
Yeah, Toppin's great. People forget how good Christian Anderson is. Christian Anderson's going to be a lottery pick off that Texas Tech team.
Yeah. 2 lottery teams, or 2 lottery picks, but Toppin just takes so much of the headlines and played so well all season long. As Kentucky and Santa Clara keep going back and forth. Man, this is fun. This is exactly what March Madness is all about, right, Mike?
Yeah, I love this. You got, especially when you have like multiple games coming down to the wire at once. Like that's the fun of the first day. And I think this is probably the best first day we've had in a few years.
Yeah, I agree with that because last year just was not the year for upsets. And this year we're starting to get back to it. We saw the VCU one yesterday. We saw the High Point wins yesterday. Both of them coming insanely, entertainingly down to the wire and ultimately leading to those upsets. And who knows what they can do tomorrow. We have the Duke Siena game go down to the wire yesterday. That was so much fun, so entertaining to watch. And now we're treated to another couple of good ones here in the early windows. The third and fourth games to tip off. You have Arizona with a 29-18 lead over LIU. And Virginia Wright State in a close one. Wright State just took the lead 16-13 over Virginia. Wright State out of the Horizon League. And they were impressive all season long, 23-11, matching up against a Virginia team, 29-5. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but Virginia was the quietest power conference team to go 29-5 in recent memories, because to me, you didn't hear a single thing about Virginia all season long. And you look up, they're in the ACC championship game as the 2 seed against Duke, nearly knocked off the Blue Devils, and they're a top 4 seed.
Yeah, well, I think part of the issue is here, like, they didn't beat anybody like above the 6th line of the tournament. So like it's hard to get a lot of attention when you're just doing what you're supposed to do, essentially. And like give them credit for that. Like they won most of their games, but like they lost to Duke twice. They lost to North Carolina, Caleb Wilson. They lost to Virginia Tech, which was not a great loss. They lost to Butler. Other than that, they won every other game they played. So that's like, yeah, it's a tough situation here because like it's one of those things where like it's inconsistency from the selection committee where like 29 wins gives the team from the ACC a 3 seed, where 31 wins from the MAC gets you into the first 4.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Make it make sense, but it didn't. I mean, maybe what they could have done was put Virginia, or wait, is Miami of Ohio paired up in that region with Virginia?
They would get them if they win.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I was about to say, okay, so maybe they should have put them in the same little pod. I'm like, wait, no, I think they are in the same pod. But yeah, no, that would be fun. Yeah, I think that's what I have in my bracket. I have Miami and Virginia playing in the second round there. Just looking over to the women's games right now, you got Oregon with a 4-point lead over Virginia Tech in an 8-9 game, and then Baylor and Nebraska about to tip off in a 6-11. So just keeping tabs on those games as well. But the one that we're focusing on right now, obviously, that Santa Clara, Kentucky game, coming down to it with just a couple of minutes left, 1-point game, 3:41 to go. Kentucky clinging to that 1-point lead over Santa Clara. Mike, I mean, this is the game. This is what we wanted, everything that we were hoping for, and we're getting it, coming down to it.
Yeah, it's going down to the wire here, like we're going basically basket for basket here, right The spread was 2.5. It's basically met the moment for that. So that's been funny to see who's that hero today who makes that big shot down the stretch.
And to me, I think it's a lot of it's going to come down to who has the ball last. The way that they've been trading shots, trading the lead all game long, it's really going to be that possession game of, okay, now you have a chance with the ball down 15 seconds on the clock. Let's see what you can do. And hopefully, give me a buzzer beater. Give me a March Madness buzzer beater, no matter which side it's on. Obviously, pulling for Santa Clara, just to see them get that win in their first trip to the dance in 30 years. That would be pretty sick. But I love it, man. This is March. This is everything that we hope for and more.
Oh, for sure. And you forgot to mention the important storyline from Arizona LIU, who has the best iced tea. He's going to be decided by this game.
Yes, I love that. All over social media, just talking about that trend and everything. I love it. So far, Arizona looking like the better iced tea on this Friday, 33-18, the lead for the Wildcats. About 8 minutes to go in the first half in that one. But Kentucky and Santa Clara, winner will get the 2 seed in that region.
Iowa State.
Iowa State, that's right. Iowa State and Tennessee State will tip off in just a little bit, and Iowa State will travel well. That arena will be heavily in the Cardinal red and gold for that game.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not as much Kentucky contingent as there usually is.
It's a very good point. I think you mentioned with the way that Mark Pope is not beloved by the fan base right now, maybe a little bit of, okay, why would we travel for you to be a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament? Kentucky should not be a 7 seed. I think that's probably what a lot of their fans are thinking, in that they need to develop it and be better. They were a 3 seed last year. So they're regressing in year 2 under Mark Pope with a $22 million roster. I think that's probably a lot of what the fan base is thinking. But in a dogfight here with Santa Clara, 1-point game. And, okay. Yeah. So on my feed, as you said, mine's slightly behind. Santa Clara just took the lead 68-67, 2:19 to go. Let me see. Let me step off for a second, put it on one of the TVs here in the room, as mentioned. I have it on my computer. Just getting the remote. I'll be right back.
Yeah, because while you do that, they did hit 1 free throw, Kentucky, 68 all with 1:40 to go. Santa Clara basketball.
Yeah, as I change the channel here. Because since that game started later than the women's game, I initially had the women on the big TV, and then I'm like, wait, no, I need this Kentucky game on the big screen and catch up to date. Yeah, 70-68 right now is where this game is shaping up. Mike, I know you've been on with us for a while. Whenever you need to hop off, just let me know. Appreciate you coming on and talking some ball on this Friday.
Yeah, I'll hang out to the end of this game. I'll probably be on my way.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, appreciate you chatting it up with me. And I mean, this was the game that we wanted and hoped for, and it's everything that we were looking for. Just looking over to the other men's games, you got to Texas Tech with a 59-51 lead over Akron. There, just inside of 12 minutes there. Arizona up big on LIU, and Wright State looking to pull off the upset of Virginia in the first round. They're up 4 in the first half. Over on the women's side, let's refresh the page here. Is Kentucky now has the ball up or down to minute 14 to go. Wildcats try a 3, and it rims out. Ooh, that one was halfway down. Came out. Now Santa Clara with the ball. 1 minute to go, up by 2. Kentucky looks like it will play this possession out defensively. Wildcats just 1 point in the final 4 minutes. Here is we're now about 45 seconds to go.
Yeah.
8 on the shot clock for the Broncos. The floater misses, and the rebound out of bounds off of Kentucky. So Santa Clara keeps the ball. 20 seconds on the shot clock, 39.6 to go in the game.
Yeah, that big drought there too. Kentucky 1 point the last 4 minutes and change. So that's not a way to close out if you're trying to get.
No, not at all. But also Santa Clara, if you think about it, they haven't pulled away here on Kentucky as you thought that they might be able to, with limiting the Wildcats to just 1 point over that stretch. It's still a 2-point game as the Broncos have the ball. 30 seconds to go. The drive inside layup misses, and battle for the loose ball. Looks like we have a jump ball. Instead, they'll call a timeout. Kentucky gets the possession on the timeout. And, wow, I don't know about that one. It looked like the ball was still loose. Wildcats call the timeout. No, Otega-Owe did have possession as the Wildcats call timeout. So 24.2 to go. Wildcats have the ball with a chance to win it. Man, Mike, we said it would come down to the final possession, one possession game with the team losing with the ball. It's exactly what we have.
Yeah, you're looking here for Kentucky. Like, do you hold for the one or do you go? I think you do try and go and get to the basket here. And if you do miss, you can at least get a rebound and put it back. I don't think you're holding for one here.
No, I agree with that. I think you hold until maybe about 8. You want to try to take the shot. I want to say maybe about in the 6 to 8 second range. Gives yourself an opportunity for an offensive rebound. And yeah, I mean, this is I look to maybe Otega-Owe in this spot for Kentucky.
Yeah, Owe is definitely a consideration. You consider he's been the big game so far. I would have to say here, I think if you can get Aberdeen open for a 3, you take it, but I don't know if they're able to. I think Santa Clara will try and lock him down.
I agree with that. I think that if you're Kentucky, I play for the 2 here. If you have an open 3, obviously you take it. But outside of that, I say you try to go for the 2. Try to get inside, maybe some type of a, ball screen or something. Owe, 24 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists for him, 3 Wildcats in double figures. As here we go, 25 seconds to go. Kentucky with the ball. They get it into the front court. Now it's 15 to play. Off the screen from the top of the key, the layup goes in. 9 seconds to go. Santa Clara with the ball. Game tied at 70. Broncos don't call a timeout. The 3, swish, 2.4 to go. Kentucky, no timeouts. The Wildcats race up the court. Owe banks it in. Are you kidding me?
You wanted March Madness. You got it right here.
Are you kidding me?
First buzzer beater of the tournament.
Oh, my goodness. Kentucky down 3 with 2.5 seconds left. Otega-Owe races up and banks in the game-tying 3-pointer. Kentucky ties it at 73, and we go to overtime. Mike, we said this was going to be one of the best games of the tournament when we had the brackets come out, and through 40 minutes, it's lived up to it.
Yeah, plenty of time here. And this is another one that goes in the argument here. Do you foul up 3?
Yes, always foul up 3. That's the John Rothstein philosophy, but that's so tough. You have 2.5 seconds left. It's different if you have a whole full possession where you're trying to guard, and then you foul certainly before the offensive player can get into the shooting motion. But with 2.5 seconds left, that's just so tough to do. Kentucky didn't have any timeouts, and wow, this game tied at 73. We go to overtime. Game one of Friday delivering in the best way possible.
Oh, this is so much fun.
Jeez. Okay, so now, I mean, it seemed like all the momentum was in the way of Santa Clara. They get the 3 with the tie ball game. You didn't need a 3 there if you were Santa Clara, but you get it. And now Kentucky storms back, takes that momentum, and now the Wildcats and the Broncos go to overtime. I believe second overtime game of the men's tournament. VCU and North Carolina going to OT yesterday. Am I right? That was the only overtime game that we had on Thursday?
Yeah, that was correct.
So, geez, this is, man, what a way to start things off here on Friday. Before they get back to the action, let's take a look at where the rest of the games are, because we're spending all of our attention, and rightfully so. Arizona up 22 over LIU. Wright State and Virginia, 1-point game with the Cavaliers leading 23-22, and Texas Tech up 7 on Akron in the second half, right about the midway point of the second half. On the women's side, Oregon with a 6-point lead over Virginia Tech, and Baylor clinging to a 1-point lead, only 9-8 in the first half there over Nebraska in a 6-11 matchup. But overtime about to tip off, and geez, this is exactly what we wanted. First overtime game for both teams this season. As Mike, we have yet another guest hopping into the chat right now. It is Josh Paz, a senior out at Indiana University. And Josh, welcome to the show.
Glad to be on here. I kind of wish I was covering a tournament game right now, but this is a good consolation. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, you get to talk about overtime between Santa Clara and Kentucky right now. What could be better?
I mean, a national championship in football, that's better, but I digress.
Fair.
It's March Madness. Mike, Josh, Mike. Mike and I went to Iona together, and Josh now is a senior at Indiana. It's a tough look for the men's basketball program for the Hoosiers this year, missing the big dance once again, but we have a Kentucky Santa Clara game. Josh, I'll ask you about your bracket in just a little bit, but 1 minute into overtime and Kentucky gets the first bucket. Crazy drive inside. Josh, what was your reaction to that final sequence of regulation?
Okay, so I didn't like the timeout call. I really thought there should have been a jump ball or no call. And then it was just chaos that ensued. I had my hands up, and being an Indiana guy, I was excited. And then hands went to the surrender cobra, phones falling out. I mean, this is what this weekend's for, especially Thursday and Friday in this tournament.
Yes. Second overtime game. Both OT games have been crazy so far. That VCU comeback yesterday over North Carolina. Santa Clara just hit a 3. Kentucky went down and scored a bucket. So Wildcats up 1, 3:13 to go here in OT. Who did you pick in this game, Josh?
Santa Clara. I was a Santa Clara hater all February, March long because of the bubble, obviously, and in Indiana. But I liked what I saw from Santa Clara in that WCC tournament. They had a week off. Kentucky plays the week before. They play a couple games. I'm a big proponent of banned Sunday conference championship games, even though Kentucky didn't play in it. You get the benefit. Santa Clara has that benefit, I think.
California's done that for years to get rid of the Sunday championship games.
Yes, I completely agree with that. That's one of my biggest gripes with conference tournament week, because it's like especially say the Big Ten. The Big Ten finishes up, 10 minutes before the selection show starts. And you look at last year, Michigan won the Big Ten tournament, and they were still, I believe, a 5 seed.
Yep.
And the selection committee, I think afterwards, said something like, yeah, pretty much the Big Ten championship game didn't matter when we were seeding.
Well, it did this year because Purdue is not a 2 if they don't win that game.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's like that's one big difference of it's like have everything wrap up on Saturday, and then you have all day Sunday where you can guess and project and talk about what the final bracket's going to be. Instead, because you have games that go up until 20 minutes before the selection show starts, you have 20 minutes of that as opposed to an entire day. We'll see, though. I don't know if it's going to change. Hopefully the tournament stays the way it does, 68, 64, 68, somewhere in that window. The best spot. Oh, my God, another 3 for Santa Clara. They can't miss from deep. They're shooting 40% from deep today, and Santa Clara with a 2-point lead here. And, geez, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, or as I could say, the committee could actually do what they did this year, actually, like, do the work on Sunday and not just, mail it in after 3 o'clock, which is what they've been doing for years.
Yeah.
Well, they've been like doing their bracket on Wednesday, and I think it was 3 years ago where Indiana and Michigan played each other on Thursday, the Big Ten tournament. Indiana won, even though Indiana beat Illinois the next day, took Iowa to the wire the day after that. Indiana was playing in Dayton. Michigan got Indianapolis against Colorado State. It didn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
But that's why I worry about the Big Ten every year, and they haven't won since Michigan State in 2000. It makes sense because you think about Iowa in 22, where they went and won the Big Ten tournament, then lost to Richmond. That's why I worry about Purdue this year. They had 4 games in 4 days just last week. I mean, they had 5 games within the week because they played, I believe, on Sunday or Saturday. So 5 games in 8 days. That's a lot of work early on in this for the tournament. They'll get by today. I don't know how much further they can go.
No, I'm not high on Purdue here. I have them out in the Sweet 16 bracket.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Of every year you hear that stat about how the Big Ten has not won a national championship since the Michigan State team did it in 2000, and that's a great point. Now I do have that streak coming to an end this year with Michigan. I think Michigan's going to win the national championship.
You've been on that since November.
Why are you against the Wolverines, Josh?
They're not really playing their best basketball right now. I don't know why. I didn't watch all of the Big Ten championship game because, like you said, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. At least in most years, it doesn't really matter. And I watched them against Wisconsin. I didn't go down to the United Center for those other games after Indiana lost, but I don't know. There's something about them. My bracket, I have Iowa State. I think that they're going to get hot at the right time. They're one of those teams that are just going to catch fire over 6 games, and they have a chance at getting far. And then you look at they're the 3 seed in their bracket right now is tied with Wright State.
Yep.
They have the path. The path is there for Iowa State. Yeah,
that they do. I definitely toyed with going Cyclones. Kentucky just took a 4-point lead as they get a block and then a run out for Oweh on the other end. So just under a minute to go here in overtime. And looks like Kentucky. No, sorry, that wasn't Oweh with the dunk, but 83-79, 48 and a half seconds left in this one. As we have the timeout in this game, Josh, take us through the rest of your bracket. So you have Iowa State winning it all. How's the rest of your Final Four look?
So the rest of my Final Four, I was the first time I did it. It was actually in the airport in O'Hare. So I was going really quick. I went with a lot of 1 seeds. I think I went with 3 1 seeds, and I was like, I don't like what I'm seeing there. So I ended up going with Florida, Michigan State, Iowa State, and Gonzaga. I think that Gonzaga pick, I'm don't know why. Sometimes I look back at picks, I'm like, what led me there? But this year, for the first time ever, I kind of went away from going too analytical. I kind of went with the who's hot and who's not, or who got hot too early. That's how I think. And teams mentality, like Nebraska, it actually fit perfectly. I was telling someone yesterday with one of their players was like, we're not here to win one game. We're here to win two. Their mentality is to win one game, to break that streak, to win a game in the NCAA tournament. And then the rest is house money from there. I didn't pick them past Vanderbilt because I go with that trend of teams are going to be satisfied with one win. They're not going to win that second game.
Yeah, that's a great point. 31.6 to go here. Kentucky still with a 4-point lead over Santa Clara. Kentucky's just so long on the perimeter. They're finally getting out and deflecting and
all
blocking.
Went their way on that Ortega away 3-pointer.
Yeah. So they're at the line now. Diabate looking to make it a 6-point game. And that's a great one. Gonzaga was an interesting one for me. I didn't know exactly what to do with them. I flirted with having them lose in the round of 32. I ultimately had them go to, I believe, the Sweet 16, and basically looked at it and said, okay, it's Mark Few and Gonzaga. Like, they're not going to not make the second weekend. And, as I pull up my bracket again, look at it, refresh my memory.
I had the opposite thought with Greg Gard.
Yes. Very true. Very
you could Sharpie that in.
Yeah. I was right there with you with that High Point upset. That was great. It's amazing. Wisconsin's stats or their record. What did I see? 1-6, 1-7 as a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. Just like, it's one of those quirky, crazy stats that you hear, and it's like, okay, how have they been a 5 seed that often? And then there's that 5-12 upset. They are the definition of the 5 getting upset by the 12.
Yeah, Greg Gard, I have the stat pulled up on Twitter from College Basketball Report here. This is his track record. Going backwards from this year, lost in the first rounds of 5, lost in the second rounds of 3, lost in the first rounds of 5, missed the tournament, lost in the second rounds of 3, lost in the second rounds of 9, no tournament for COVID, lost in the round of 64 as a 5, missed the tournament, and made the Sweet 16 his first year.
Wild. Yeah,
he was a Bo Ryan merchant.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you hear right there, 3 seed, 5 seed, 3 seed, 5 seed, like in good positions, can certainly get it to the second weekend, and just one second weekend appearance there. Josh, I saw a big smile on your face as Mike was reading that through of not seeing Wisconsin make deep runs. I know that makes you happy as a Big Ten rival.
They're so ethical, it's unethical. Like, I love their style of play, but like it's too good for me. Like it's like I want a cheeseburger, not a filet mignon. Like that's what I want. Yep. They don't give me what I want. And maybe it's because Indiana hasn't beaten Wisconsin in the Kohl Center. I think it's 1997 was the last time they did.
Wow.
So maybe that's my gripe. But Wisconsin, Purdue, and Kentucky, and Illinois. I can't get behind.
Yeah, in terms of the Wisconsin thing, I said this at multiple outlets, including the guy on my own podcast, right for fan side of the college basketball. No matter what you did, Wisconsin, the brackets here is going to be wrong because they have that kind of resume this year where like they have incredible great wins. They go lose on the road to a bad Oregon team by 14. They lose at USC by a bucket. Like they just very Jekyll and Hyde and very play to the competition they're playing.
Yeah, great points. Well, we got that High Point one as clock's about to tick out. Kentucky will pull off the win over Santa Clara as the flush right there finishes it. Final 5 seconds here in overtime. Kentucky with the 80. No, there's going to be a foul. And just as I was about to say, clock's going to tick out. So Kentucky in very good position, up 7 over Santa Clara here in the first round. Unfortunately for all three of us, we're going to start the day off 0 for 1 in terms of game action we had Santa Clara. I believed in the Broncos, and yet Kentucky. I mean, just how about
should have fouled up 3.
Or take a timeout. You're going home with 2 timeouts. You could have left regulation with a timeout, and you set up your defense.
Yeah. All good points. The timeout, the foul situation, but instead Santa Clara down now 5 with 2
it's Sharpie.
Yep. Sharpie that one. No foul. And that does it. Kentucky 89-84 over Santa Clara, advancing to round 2 for Mark Pope and the Wildcats. If the rest of the 15 games for today is anything like game 1, we've got another great day of March.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, I know you said you were going to take off right around when that game finished up. Glad to have you down the stretch for it, because it certainly lived up to exactly what we wanted. Give your own podcast a little plug here while you're here.
Yeah, if you want, I'll give you the 30-second plugs here. Just on the Suffering podcast, I have March Madness episodes coming every week with Troy Moriello, our great friend Ian. So that's coming on Monday. Do college basketball stuff for Fanside. If you're a Star Wars guy, the Sky Guys podcast, we're going back through old Mandalorian stuff, getting from the movie coming out this year. So make sure you check all that stuff out.
Yeah, you're great with the sports coverage and also the Star Wars stuff. I learned so much about Star Wars just listening to that podcast. So yeah, great stuff there. And Mike, appreciate you spending some time on this Friday of the first week with us here on Game Day Garage. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, Josh. All right. So locked in at all on the men's side. Have you been following the women's action at all so far? I know we're early on in the action there. You fill out a bracket at all?
I did not this time around. I actually, excuse me, I filled out one bracket for the men's side for 2 groups. This is like the weakest, like money wise this year, like that I ever have. I had a friend, high school friend of mine growing up, all this stuff. He's now in the MLS, and now all of his friends are also professional athletes. So the buy-in has gotten bigger and bigger every year. I had to get out. So that's one. So women's side, I had no one to do it with. So I just didn't fill out a bracket this year, but I've watched a little bit. Obviously Indiana not being good didn't help, but watching the Big Ten tournament a little bit here and there throughout the week before the men's tournament was. So yeah, but I do think I have a gripe with women's college basketball again, unfortunately, is that we've kind of reverted back 8 years this year. It's going to be scratch and it's going to be 1 seeds. There's not going to be as much madness as there was in the last few years. The parity's all gone. And maybe it's because of NIL. Maybe it's because the money coming in and all that stuff. But it kind of stinks that the parity will be gone here after a really, really, really fun stretch of women's college basketball.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the women have, for a long time, not had much parity. And that's been a big thing that, you know, you're filling out your men's bracket and you're looking and trying to say, like, okay, let's go with this upset. Let's go with that upset. Let's go with this upset. A couple of years ago, just made my men's bracket was like utter chaos. I think there was one region that I picked that I had like the maybe 6 versus 7, or No, they're both in the bottom half. Maybe like the 5 and the 7 in the regional final, and it's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And I've tamped that down a little bit on the men's side because of the way last year went. Women, as I'm filling it out, it's like I would love to pick a 12 seed to go to the Sweet 16 or pick a 6 seed to go to the Elite 8, but that's not going to happen on the women's side. And yeah, I'm looking at my women's bracket. My Elite 8 is all 4 1 seeds, 1 2 seed, and 3 3 seeds. So that's the parity that I'm looking at, where the biggest variation is a couple of 3 seeds getting to the Elite 8. So that's a great point. And to your point, I have all 4 1 seeds as my 4 Final Four teams. Mm-hmm. And I have UConn and UCLA in my national championship game, the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed. So yeah, that's a very good point. But I've even kind of translated that some to the men's side as well, because my men's bracket this year is pretty chalky as well. I have 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and a 4 seed in Arkansas. And it's just because I think that, one, they're insanely hot right now, and I will not buy Arizona until I see them make a deep March Madness run.
I'm sorry. I just realized that maybe I was really just tired when I was creating my bracket. I had Akron to the Sweet 16.
Hey, I was that close to doing that with you. I definitely have Akron over Texas Tech in this game. And I think the last Sweet 16 team that I picked was that Akron versus I did pick Akron over Alabama. Yeah. I thought I went Alabama. Yeah. I have Akron Sweet 16 with you.
Wow, that's a bad pick.
I don't think so. Okay. Well, they're down 13 with 4 minutes to go. So yes, in the moment, yes. But I was right there with you, because that's a team that is, to me, was flying so much under the radar that it's like, this team is not getting enough credit. They're going to come and ball out in March Madness. They're playing a Texas Tech team that's banged up with no JT Toppin. And then they're playing an Alabama team potentially in the second round, where they have a lot of storylines off the court. What attention is going to be dedicated to that? I'm right there with you. I don't even think Alabama might not get through today's game against Hofstra. I was tempted to pick the Pride to knock off the Crimson Tide.
I was too, but then I realized that would just start to be too trendy. Yep. And everyone's going to pick that, so I'll go against the grain. And it's funny when I go against the grain and pick a 4 seed. But everyone's like, oh, they have so much issue going. There's so much, like, the turmoil. They're going to beat Hofstra. And then they'll probably lose to Texas Tech, and it'll be a really good job by Grant McCasland. Obviously, they have to finish this game, and there's a whole 40 minutes in the next game, and they don't even know who they're playing. But I think Grant McCasland will be earning high praise if he can get this team to the second weekend.
Oh, absolutely. It's insane. So I've said this a couple of times here already on this stream, but Texas Tech was one of the teams that I had my eye on to go to the Final Four in like mid-February, early to mid-February. I thought, yeah, I could see Texas Tech making a run. Like, I think they'll probably be right around in that 3 or 4 seed range. And like, yeah, I think that they will be one of those teams. Cause like, I never want to go all 4 1 seeds. And it's like, okay, so like, where's a team in that 2, 3, 4 range where it's like, all right, yeah, they're hot. You know, they're maybe didn't put together quite the resume that a 1 seed did, but like, this is a team that I think can go to the Final Four. Texas Tech was the first team that I thought of in that range. And I thought, yeah, they were in the Elite 8 last year. They had Florida on the ropes in the Elite 8 last year. Like, they could have and should have, arguably, like, very easily should have gone to the Final Four, and yet they didn't. They have Toppin back. It's like, yeah, I love Grant McCasland. Like, this is the team. a game or two later is when Toppin went down. And it was like, shoot, there goes that. And then I see the bracket the way it comes out, and they play an Akron team that I was super high on. And it's like, well, shoot, like I'm not even going to have them win a game now. Here I was thinking about having them win 4 at least, maybe even go to the championship game. And now I'm not going to pick them to pick 1. It was just so weird. And but yeah, no, I was high with you on this Akron team, and Grant McCaslin, just incredible. Yeah.
He's probably one of the best coaches in the country. But I like to your point, like I said, I had like 3 1 seeds in my initial bracket where I overanalyzed stuff. And then I thought Michigan State, that's the team right there. Their 3-point shooting is spotty, but when they get hot, they'll run. And since I have UCLA over UConn in the second round, I think that they can get their revenge on UCLA, and then let's see again, Michigan State and Duke. I mean, round 15 of 15 straight years, they seem to face each other all the time if Duke gets there. Right. And I think that Michigan State is one of those teams. I saw them play twice this year, and I was impressed both times. I mean, Cone Carr doesn't really give you anything outside of a spectacular dunk, maybe 1 or 2 per game, but it's a momentum switch for them. And if they can ride the wave and Kurt Tank can hit some shots and Jeremy Fears can facilitate, and they're 2 bigs with Cooper and Kohler, I think those are the teams that's the team that's so well-rounded that they've kind of flown under the radar as of late. They're not the Michigan State team that's a 1 seed. They don't have the superstar. I mean, they have Jeremy Fears and they have a dunk artist with Carr, but I think that they're a team that will just make it to the Sweet 16 and they'll find a way to win, and maybe, just maybe, could be that Big Ten team to get the conference over the edge one more time. Yeah,
they're the team in that region, because when the bracket came out, that was the first region revealed, and it was Duke the 1 seed, UConn the 2 seed, Michigan State the 3, Kansas the 4, and St. John's the 5. And it's like, okay, well, like that, all those teams in one region, like that's insane. And they're the team that has the least amount of headlines surrounding them, because Duke obviously is always going to have all the headlines with Cameron and Caden Boozer, the number 1 seed, everything. And it's Duke. Then you have UConn, the 2 national championships in the last 3 years, Dan Hurley, everything with them. Get back to Michigan State in a minute. Kansas, one of the bluest of blue bloods, and the whole Darren Peterson thing, Bill Self, and it's like, okay, like they're going to be a lot of headlines. Then you have St. John's, who just went back-to-back with Big East regular season and tournament championships, Hall of Famer and Rick Pitino. And it's like, okay, like here's this loaded region, and the 3 seed is the one who falls under the radar substantially compared to all those other 4 teams. That's exactly when Tom Izzo does his best work. When they're a good team, but not quite that number 1 seed, number 2 seed, and they're going to be the ones to come out of it. It's like, of course they're going to be. Like, it makes so much sense. Now, I do have them losing in the Sweet 16 to UConn, but it would not shock me at all if they are the team that comes out of that region.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that UCLA can clip UConn. Maybe I'm going against my own thing of they're hot too early, but they didn't go to the championship game. They got to fly home, and they're used to the East Coast travel. They're going out to Philadelphia. They found success later in the season on the road. They lost 1 game at home, but I tell you what, that press conference after, no matter who the losing coach is, it's going to be just electric if UCLA and UConn play.
No matter who the winning coach is either. I mean, both of them are just soundbite machines. And yeah, we need to get that. Like, I know it's not possible since that's that potential second round game, but like, imagine if we had, since they're all in the same region, imagine if the Sweet 16 there in that region was like Patino, Hurley, Cronin, and I'm trying to think who else would be a great soundbite.
Izzo's a soundbite guy at times.
Yeah.
It depends on where you get him.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes he's pretty buttoned up, and other times he's great. So yeah, no, it's
like what I have is with mine is Cronin, Izzo, Patino, and Shire. And Shire is not really a crazy quote, but those are 4 of the game's best coaches right there.
Yeah.
In they're going to, what is that, Washington, D.C.?
That sounds right.
That's the D.C. because
Duke's
because
Washington. Yep.
That's where I was listening to, I think it was Westwood One's late night radio, 2 weeks ago. And John Shire is a genius. And the more basketball coaches should probably start thinking about this. And I think Darren DeVries did it at Indiana in playing in Chicago at the United Center. He played against Michigan, a good team, in Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. Earlier in the season, he played 2 really good teams, one on Thursday, one on Saturday, one on Friday, one on Sunday, whatever it was, in NBA arenas to prepare his team. So, I mean, they didn't look great yesterday, but there isn't a team more prepared for this short turnaround than Duke just because of what John Shire did.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's so underrated what he did there of going to play those games, and you love seeing it on the schedule. And it's like, and especially like when we hit that in February, because it's not like that was a mid-November game, like the way we have the Champions Classic to tip things off a couple days into the season. Like that's so long ago, but they did that in mid-February to break up conference play. I love that because conference play can be such a long slog, especially now with conferences playing 20 conference games. And it's like you're seeing the same teams from the beginning of January through mid-March between the regular season and the conference tournament. So just to freshen things up, give a new look, kind of spark those creative juices in the scout team and all of that. And then to do it in a site where you could be playing an NCAA tournament game against an NCAA tournament caliber team, I think we're going to be seeing more of it. And Josh, remember, we had several years ago, we had the bracket busters for mid-majors where you would play a non-conference team that's on your level. And the reason it was called bracket busters was because a lot of times those teams would be jockeying for at-large bids, and those wins/losses could determine who gets in one of the final at-larges. I think we're going to be seeing the equivalent of bracket busters on the power conference level now with what Duke and Michigan and a couple of others did this year.
Yeah, and I'd love to see the return of the Big Ten ACC Challenge, but don't do it in November. I like the November game. They're great, but I think if you do it, you do a Big Ten ACC Challenge while the teams are at their best or trying to hit their peak and trying to jockey for position. Those are perfect times to do it in power conference basketball where you just you play. You play against someone new. You play a different style because it prepares you for the next coming weeks. You're going to start playing March basketball. You're going to have to learn how to play another team conference style, or you're going to have to try to impose your style, your conference's style on another conference, on another and out of conference team. So I think that is the next step. I don't want it to be though in a neutral site. I don't think that's good for the game. I think this is I go back and forth with how every court at the NCAA tournament for the men's side is cookie cutter. They all look the same. There's no spark to it. You go back and look at tournaments from 15, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and you had the host team's logo on the court, and it looked goofy, but it looked cool. Like home courts, and I'm not saying like do the women's route where the 1, 2, and 3, the first 4 seeds get home court advantage, but play regular season games on neutral sites, and that's how you grow the game more so than playing in an NBA arena 150 miles away from your college campus.
Yeah, completely agree with that, because that's what makes college sports so much fun. Not playing in an NBA arena and filling 40 or 50% of it. You're playing at a home venue. You think about all the great venues that we have: Allen Fieldhouse, Cameron Indoor Stadium, Rupp Arena, the Dean Smith Center, and even on down, like there's so many that are underrated. Arkansas, Bud Allen Arena, insane atmosphere there. Play it there. Play in a hostile environment. That will prepare you a heck of a lot more for the NCAA tournament and being battle tested for it than going to play in some NBA arena where it's a third your fans, a third the other team's fans, and a third empty. And you have to go play in front of the Cameron Crazies. You're going to come out a much better team than if you go play in an empty Miami Heat arena or an empty Washington Wizards arena. Like, go to these sites and as you said, grow the game, because I'd much rather turn on a game with that atmosphere than a game that looks like an NBA game, because NBA games are boring at this point. And when you play a college game in a neutral environment like that, it doesn't have the luster that a home court does.
Yeah, I mean, think about Iowa State, albeit it was like the first weekend in December. They went to Mackey Arena and they defeated an AP #1 team by the largest margin in decades, maybe ever.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they played at Allen Fieldhouse. They played at the McHale Center.
Yep.
They played in Houston. They played in a tough Big 12, but they now, if they have to play, gosh, Duke, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to look at the bracket right now. They're in the West? No, they're in the Midwest, aren't they?
Yeah, they're with Michigan.
So they play Michigan in Chicago. That's a home game for Michigan. I know Iowa State fans will travel, but like they're going to have to play a road environment at some point. They're going to have to traverse against tough fans. They're going to have to traverse tough roads. And if you think about it, this is something that will make the game better. What better than watching a college basketball game and it's starting with a scene on campus and the scene of students lining up or students camping out? That's what makes college basketball so great. Not $15,000 tickets to Michigan versus Duke in February. It's just stupid. And it replicates March. Sure. But you can replicate March with a Friday and Sunday game against teams at your home stadium or go on the road. I mean, Big Ten has to go out to LA or the Pacific Northwest. They do that. But you're going to have to start doing those out of conference and not meeting in neutral sites.
Right. Like imagine if the Big Ten for a couple of games said, okay, for the West Coast teams, like instead of having to go all the way to the East, let's just play games in Denver, like, something like that. Or say the East Coast teams, instead of having to go all the way out to Iowa, let's just play a couple games in the United Center for, Maryland and Rutgers playing Iowa and Nebraska. Like, we'll just put them in Chicago because it's like, no, you can't do that. Like, you want to go
Duke and Arkansas
home court environments. What was that?
I mean, Duke and Arkansas did that in November in Chicago. What good does that do anybody?
Nothing.
Like, it was probably 40% full. It looks dumb. And I get wanting to meet halfway with a team like Indiana and Marquette did it. And maybe I'm maybe contradicting myself with Indiana here and the Big Ten tournament being there, but it just doesn't have the same feel. You look at Purdue and Indiana. If they played in Indianapolis, if they met in Indianapolis, it'd be half full. I mean, people would love it, but it doesn't have the same feeling.
Or if you put Duke, North Carolina, in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Like,
it wouldn't make sense.
no.
Even if you put it in the, oh gosh, I don't even know what the Carolina Hurricanes stadium's called. A bigger stadium.
Yeah.
Who cares? Or PNC Bank Center. That's what it is. PNC Center.
Yep.
You don't do that. You don't put the game in a place where it can't grow.
Well, and think about it with the college football playoff. The best game atmospheres that we've seen the 2 years of the 12-team playoff have been the first round games, every single one of them, because they're the on-campus games. When you start going to the bowl games and you're playing in, okay, the Rose Bowl is a little different because it's the Rose Bowl. Fine. I'll give that one, but like going to play in Louisiana versus Notre Dame having a home game, like you'd much rather be at a Notre Dame home game than playing in the Saints arena. Or, just using those two as an example, those are the type of games that you love to see because each one is different. That's why you see so many people want to go to see all 30 MLB stadiums, because MLB stadiums, each one is very different from the next one. Once you start getting into basketball arenas, football arenas, they're pretty cookie cutter. They might have unique things that make them different, but it's all basically the same. Whereas you go to a baseball stadium, right field here is super short versus they have a Red Sox with the Green Monster, so many different things. And that's what makes home court basketball so exciting, because you have those different unique things as opposed to a neutral site game, where if you see a neutral site game here, you've seen all of them.
Yeah. I will say, like, the best college football atmosphere, gosh, I mean, Ohio State was great for Indiana, Ohio State, but I'd tell you, Peach Bowl, Indiana, Oregon, where it was 98% Indiana fans, I've never seen a home court. I mean, up until Nebraska yesterday, a home advantage on a neutral site, especially 8 hours away from Indiana. It was seriously one of the most remarkable things. But I agree, like, you want to watch games on college. No one wanted to watch, what was it? I think it was like a few years ago, but it was Clemson in Georgia that played like week one in like Louisiana. It was a good crowd. It didn't have the same feeling.
Yeah.
These coaches in both football and more specifically men's basketball are afraid to play on the road these days. I mean, I don't quite understand it, because a quad 1A loss or a quad 1 loss isn't going to hurt you. It isn't going to hurt your metrics, but Indiana and Louisville playing in Indianapolis doesn't make any sense. Purdue and DePaul shouldn't be playing in the United Center.
Right.
I mean, shout out to Paul, but
even like, say, Gonzaga, the way that they play some of their games at Spokane Arena instead of at the Kennel. Like, I remember Kentucky a couple years ago said, yeah, we'll come play you in Spokane, but we're not coming to the Kennel. We'll play you at Spokane Arena. No, go to the Kennel. Play at the Kennel. That's one of the best home court atmospheres in the entire country. Play there. Let's see Kentucky on the road at Gonzaga on campus. But fortunately, we didn't get that. But
they're just so results based, and like Indiana and Kentucky, Indiana went to Rupp, but the way Calipari scheduled it, and Mike Woodson just rolled over and said thank you very much. They're playing in Indianapolis. They're going to play at Lucas Oil Stadium. Like, what good does that do? Why was Calipari scared to play in Bloomington? Why are these coaches afraid to go challenge their team on the road? Like, do they think that it won't help them? It won't make them a better team for conference play? Sure it will.
Christian Wofford is why Calipari won't go back to Assembly Hall.
Watford for the win.
Yeah. I still remember that, watching that game and the ending there, insane ending there. But okay, Josh, let's ring it back in as we're about to wrap things up here. What are you looking forward to most the rest of the day for March Madness?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna look at the slate. I always forget about the slate as soon as I'm
Same
gonna go my game of the day. I'm gonna look through them all. Is Clemson versus Iowa. For the rest of
Ooh.
the day, Clemson Iowa will be a very. I like Ben McCollum. I hate the style of play, and I think that once Bennett starts leaves, he's going to have to figure something out. But these two teams are about as even as possible. I struggle with them on my bracket. I think I chose Clemson ultimately, but that's the game I'm watching. Upset pick. You know what? Shout out the Panthers of Northern Iowa. Maybe they'll get one done today. So that's what I'm looking forward today. A close game between Clemson and Iowa, and then looking at potential upset Northern Iowa over St. John's.
I love that. Yeah, I struggled with that Clemson Iowa game. I think I went Iowa. The Ben McCollum factor was the big reason for me going with the Hawkeyes there to win that one. I did give a little pause to that Northern Iowa one, and that would be pretty insane if we get Northern Iowa and Kansas in the round of 32 again. That would give me a lot of flashbacks to a painful memory. I had Kansas winning the national championship that year, but then Ali Freakmanesh said, "No, sir," and they knocked them out. Another 8-9 game that I'm interested in, Villanova and Utah State. Can the Aggies advance for another time? Man, I have Ohio tipping off in a little while. It's going to be an interesting one. And then the potential upset bid that I'm looking at is one of the late games, UConn and Furman. Not saying that the Paladins win, but I think they keep it substantially closer than what the line says.
I don't disagree at all. I think that UConn is different than most the UConn teams of the past few years. They are susceptible to a bad loss. You saw it against Seton Hall at home. That is something that I took into account, and that's why I said UCLA is going to beat them. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a closer game today.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Just before we go, let's recap where we are in the games. Arizona with a 30-point lead over LIU early second half. Wright State with a 2-point lead over Virginia about a minute into the second half there. Those are the two men's games. On the women's side, you got Nebraska with a 1-point lead over Baylor at the half. South Dakota State trailing Washington by 4, 24-20 in the second quarter, and Oregon with a 19-point lead over Virginia Tech in the fourth quarter there in an 8-9 game. Well, Josh, thank you for bringing up the rare hair and leading us to the end. Always fun talking basketball with you.
I have a blast every single time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Josh Paz. You've been watching Game Day Garage, the Quad March Madness edition on this Friday, first day of the women's tournament in earnest. Men's tournament, day 2 of the first round. Stay tuned to Game Day Garage for all of your March Madness needs. We'll catch you guys next time.